hustlers, road players, tournament champions. Hear the stories, get their advice, learn about their lives. Our host, Joey Ryan, brings you an inside look at the professional pool player. You're listening to the Pool Player Podcast, brought to you by Pool Scene 365.
Hey, welcome to the Pool Player Podcast, brought to you by Pool Scene 365. I'm your host, Joey Ryan. If you're enjoying this content, do me a favor, hit the like button, share it, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you get updated with all the latest episodes, including the one we have today, which is a great one for you. By the way, one thing I haven't mentioned before is if you could do me a favor and comment on the videos. Maybe I forgot to ask a question that you've been dying to know about one of these players. Just hit up the comments there and let me know. And I'm happy to go through and follow up with them after the podcast and ask that question and see if we can get an answer for you. So today I'm really excited about the guest that we have here. And he's got a long list of accomplishments, but I'm just going to name a few. He's a former member of Mosconi Cup teams from 2009 to 2017. He's the former 2010 runner-up in the Beijing International Open. He's also the runner-up in the 2019 Super Billiards Expo, great event they have there, usually in Valley Forge. I think it's in New Jersey now. He finished fourth in the Spain Open. He's also the former champion from the Jay Swanson Memorial Tournament and the Rum Runner. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Oscar Dominguez to the program. Hey, Oscar, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
And I know congratulations are in order. You just had another daughter, and so I just want to take a minute and congratulate you on that.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I'm surprised you had time to do this. I know with having little kids, it gets tough, huh?
Yeah, it's a handful, but it's okay.
Yeah. Oscar, can you take us through how you got started in pool?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my father plays. I played for many years professionally. I actually picked up the game very early. My dad said I was able to break and run out on a bar table, like 8-ball, probably when I was about 5 or 6. He says he thought I was going to become a champion. And then I guess age 7 hit, and then I got into basketball. And I just never picked pool up again until my dad bought a pool hall in Los Angeles, in Northridge, California. And I remember working there for the summer, and a lot of the customers were like, "Hey, Oscar, I don't want to practice alone. Come play with me." And then, it lit the competitive fire little by little, and I started losing. And I said, I don't like losing. So I started practicing. And slowly but surely, I got addicted.
Yeah, so that was my next question is, when did you decide to become a competitive player? Was there a kind of a moment in time where you realized, hey, I'm losing right now. I don't like losing. And if I want to do this, I'm really going to work at it. Do you remember that time?
I remember it vividly. My dad and his business partner, we used to have Wednesday night tournaments, and it was USPPA handicapped, race to 5, single elimination. I still remember like it was yesterday. And we used to get like 70 or 80 players, and we used to add $5 a head, no limits. So the tournaments got pretty juicy, for a Wednesday night tournament. And a kid in high school, I'm thinking, I can win $500 and I can retire. I mean, $500 to me was an astronomical amount of money. And I remember the first time I played, I'd lost 5-0. Play the second time, 5-0, 5-0, 5-0. I lost like maybe 5 or 6 tournaments in a row, and I just lost it. I got so upset. I told my dad, "Dad, this is embarrassing. I'm your son, and I can't beat this lady who robbed me. I need you to teach me." And I was really upset. And my dad's like, "Okay, if you want to learn, I'll show you some stuff." And I remember for my 18th birthday, I got a custom cue, a TAD custom cue. My dad gave it to me, one of his. And I played my first tournament. I won my first tournament. It was that Wednesday night tournament. And I remember, I still remember Norbert Santiago. I still remember the guy who I beat in the finals. He was like a really strong shortstop player. I won like 400 or 500, I think it was, like 4 something. And that's it. I was hooked. It was over.
Taking a kind of like the next step. So, you decided to become competitive and you snapped off that Wednesday night tournament that you had struggled with for so long. When was the moment where, you got up to the higher level tournaments, let's say, and you realized, hey, wait a minute, I've arrived. I can pretty much beat anybody if I play my game. When was that?
I remember it was a bicycle club in Los Angeles. Wow. I didn't have the money. It was a $500 entry fee. And my good friend, Jerry Quist, he's a personal makeup artist for Bruce Willis. Really good friend, family friend of ours. He says, Oscar, I'll put you in. And he was just donating the money, of course. I mean, I had no chance at the time. But I remember I lost my first round. I was so nervous. And then I was going to play the loser of Johnny Archer and Dan Wallace. And Dan Wallace is a great player from San Diego. And it was hill, and I was hoping for Johnny to lose. I was rooting for the other guy because I wanted to play Johnny Archer.
Yeah.
And Dan ended up losing hill. So I played Dan. I beat him. I beat Corey Harper. I beat a couple other players. And I ended up cashing. And I had only been playing pool for 6 months at that point. And I said, and I remember losing to Danny Harriman, who was playing really well at the time. And I felt like I'm not that far behind these guys. I'm really not that far behind. So then I put in a lot of work. I became obsessed.
Yeah, it's amazing how, the game is so mental, right? So when I talk to players that maybe don't play as good as I do, and they say, well, how do I get to that next level? I always tell them, well, so much of it is in your mind, right? If you're losing to somebody 7 out of 10 times, if you can get to the point where you're only losing 6 out of 10 times, you're pretty much the same player they are, right? And so then once you decide that I play as good as that person, now you're winning 6 out of 10, right? So Oscar, I met you years ago. I've joked around with you a little bit about this. It was in the bathroom at the Super Billiards Expo. I know it sounds embarrassing, but you had just finished a match and you played great. And it just so happened that after your match, I was like, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And you had went to the bathroom right after the match. And so we're at the sinks washing our hands. Okay. Not at the urinals, but at the sinks. And I said, Oscar, that was a great match. I really enjoyed watching that. And you were just so polite and modest and approachable. With so many brash and cocky pool players out there, what led you to being that way, to having that disposition?
I guess my dad. I mean, I had a great example. My dad's always been very humble. He always leveled me out no matter what I did in life. Perfect example is I remember playing basketball competitively. I played at a decent level. And I remember I made 17 out of 21 3-pointers. I mean, I played unbelievable. I had an unbelievable game against one of the top teams in the country for private schools, because I went to a private Catholic school, high school. And we lost in double overtime. And I told my dad, I'm like, hey, I had a good game at least. I played really well. And my dad says, yeah, but what about those 2 free throws you missed in the first quarter? And I'm like, you son of a gun. I was looking for your affirmation, and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
So little things like that. I mean, he just, like my dad's simple example, my dad always bought his VHS tapes back, the AccuStats tapes, only when he lost. I don't have a single tape of him winning.
Really?
Every single match he loses. And I asked him, like, don't you have a match where you win? He's like, no, why? Yeah. So I want to see what I did wrong. And I had that ingrained in me from the beginning. It's don't get too high, don't get too low. Realize that there's a paddle for everyone's ass, really.
Yeah, I love that because, I look to all these folks that lose a pool match, right? And they're always like, oh, it's a hill and the ball rolled off or the waitress walked by. And, I always say to them, well, what about when it was 3-3 and you dogged that straight in 5-ball,
Yeah.
And nobody ever thinks about that, but I think you do, right?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
of the way that your dad brought you up. And, watching the matches that you lose, I tell everybody that, right? If you lose a match and it's on the stream, go back and watch it. It's hard. It's hard to do.
It's hard.
But
it's
not easy.
You got to swallow your pride.
Yeah. So I always like giving guests the opportunity to share entertaining stories. So, one thing I'm trying to do with this is promote the player like yourself, and so that more people get exposed to you and what you're all about, not just at the pool table, but behind the scenes, and also promote the game, but then really share some entertaining, interesting stories that happen out there. Do you have any stories from kind of your travels and days out on the road?
I can write an encyclopedia of stuff. I mean,
We'll pick the best one.
oh my goodness. I mean, I I gotta go back to my dad. I mean, I remember going to the Philippines and I got off the plane and my dad's like, you want to rest? I'm like, the hell with rest. It's my first time in the Philippines. Let's go gamble. So I go to the pool room, one side cafe, and they're like, oh, this guy's an amateur. And I already know they're full of crap.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, whatever. Let's play for 300. And, I go hill. And I felt like I told my dad, this guy can't beat me. He plays good, but I think I'm stealing. My dad's like, well, raise the bet because it was hill. I'm like, all right. So I asked, you guys want to start over and bet like 1,000? And I mean, I'm 22 at the time. I'm full of testosterone, I guess. And then, long story short, the guy's got me like 16-2, race to 17. I come back, make it 16-15, and a 9-ball skids on me, or else I make it hill again. So I lose. And so I don't know who this guy is. I pay off they only bet 700, so I got off cheap. And next day, Shane Van Moden comes in, and then this guy asked Shane to play. And he robs Shane like 21-5 or 21-7. Just plays unbelievable. And I'm watching this match, and my dad's over there playing in the corner, and he taps me on the shoulder, and he looks at me. He's like, I thought you said you were stealing. I'm like, oh, no, I know. You know who it was? Carlo Beato.
Oh, God. Jeez.
I was playing Carlo Beato, and I'm like, I'm stealing, Dad. That guy can't beat me. He doesn't know how to play position.
Jeez.
And I was the one who didn't know what the hell I was doing.
It's almost like he was stalling on you to get at Shane or something.
Yeah. I was playing good because I didn't know who I was playing.
Right.
It goes to the psychological factor where, like, I felt like I was a better player than him. In that moment, in my heart, I felt like I was a much better player than him. Mm-hmm. I was wrong, but mentally I felt strong, and that's why I was able to compete and almost beat him. So again, you're saying the game's all mental. The reason why I picked that story is because it's so mental, because I'm playing one of the best players in the world, because I didn't know at the time, but I was just playing my game. I wasn't playing his name.
Yeah. So I'm not a professional, but I'm a pretty solid player. And so sometimes I get in a tournament and I'm playing against folks, and I know I play better than them, and they're beating me. And it's almost like I want to tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, don't you know you're supposed to lose here? It's like, you can't do that.
You can't do that. Yeah, it's frowned upon.
Yeah. So Oscar, you're coming to us from Hard Times right now.
That's
and
right.
So that's your room. And I think every pool player has had that thought of, what if I owned a room? What if I had my own place? I could make my own rules. I could, have my own tournaments and things like that. But I think there's probably another side to it, right? Other than the glamorous, like I have a pool room. So I kind of wanted to feel you out and see if you could share maybe the good, the bad, and the ugly of, having your own room.
Well, I mean, I'll start with the good. My economics professor told me, Oscar, if you can make money while you sleep, you're doing the right thing. So that's something that just stuck with me from since I was 19. I'm 35 now. So I always try to figure out what way can I make money while I sleep and enjoy it. The opportunity arose here to purchase this business. And it was an opportunity I just couldn't say no to. There's a lot of moving parts here. I have 33 tables. I have a kitchen. I have a bar, 21 employees. It's 21 personalities, 21 different viewpoints on life. So there's a constant level of stress. I mean, it's not too bad though. I mean, obviously it beats the grind out going to Derby City and hoping people to step out of line so you can make a score. It's a lot of work. Big misconception here is that you get to play pool, and I played less pool now than I ever have, ever. I mean, when I had my daughter, I played a lot of pool still because I was still playing for a living, and I had to grind it out. I had to train. I had to practice. I had no choice because I got a family now that depends on me. Here, I don't need to win anymore. So, and it's funny. I told my stake horse, Tommy, I said, now I have more income than I had before as a pool player. Well, not right now because of COVID, but as a business owner, I had more income coming in, and now I gamble less, significantly less. I really don't gamble much anymore because I know the value of a dollar.
Yeah.
When you're young and easy come, easy go. But one thing about running a business is that the overhead. Everyone looks at the money coming in. They see your place slammed. They see the register opening and closing. They're like, wow, they're crushing it. And yes, you are crushing it until you have to pay those bills, until you have to pay your rent, your insurance, your payroll. I mean, every 2 weeks, I get kicked in the gut, in payroll. I never in a million years imagined that I would be writing the checks that we write for the business, from a pool player point of view. You make a $5,000 score in pool, it's like, hey, it's going to hold you off for a month or so.
Yeah.
I do a $5,000 score in business. It's nothing. It just goes, it's a very small percentage of what needs to come in to run such a large operation. But I enjoy it because I have all these ideas of, in all my travels all over the world, Indonesia, Japan, Europe. So I'm trying to really kind of incorporate everything I like from every culture, or everything that I liked at the pool rooms, and trying to incorporate it into my business. There's a lot of great pool rooms out there that I've learned a lot from, a lot of great people. And it's nice seeing your ideas work. And there's something satisfying about walking into my pool room and there's action on all the tables. There's, the recreational players having fun and enjoying the game that I love so much, and seeing other people, it's a fulfillment, some type of fulfillment that's hard to explain.
Yeah. Have you had to make many trade-offs? Because, you see a lot of rooms open, and, I think like if I were to open a room, I would want to have it as a room for the players, like all the conditions right for pool players, but we all know pool players don't spend a lot of money, right? So you have the clientele that does spend money. And so I've seen a lot of rooms have to make that trade-off. I'm just curious about that.
That's a good question. I've been very blessed, and that the pool players do spend money. I think it's a big misconception. So tournament weekends, lots of pool players, if you have good, fair options and pricing, they will spend in your place. It's when you're gouging the pool players, because our economy is not, the pool player economy is fragile. So you can shear a sheep many times, but skin them only once. That's a philosophy I've always lived by. People don't mind paying for quality, and people don't mind paying for a service if it's fairly priced. I have $90 a month unlimited pool here membership, except when I have a waiting list, and they have the option to stay, go on time, or give up a table. And do I really make money off of them? Not really, but they're here and they spend money on food, on beer, whatever, because the pool players will spend if you're fair to them. I consider myself, this area is kind of like, working class. This isn't a very high-end clientele. This isn't the place where you're going to spend $8 for a beer. This is, the $4 Coronas and stuff like that. So we're more of high quantity. We're not trying to gouge people here. And I think that's the reason why this place has been here for so long. And, And I love having tournaments because it is profitable. I'd be lying to you if I said it wasn't profitable. It is profitable to have tournaments here.
Mm-hmm.
It's more profitable if I win them.
But that's bad form. You can't win your own tournaments, Oscar.
Yeah, well, you know what? I've had that saying. I've had people tell me that, but I'm like, I love to play pool. I'm not going to turn off the competitive edge, but
no, I think just to kind of add to that, though, I think in all honesty, people want to see you at your best, so I was joking. I mean, like if I came up to your room and I played in the tournament and I competed against you, if I had the feeling that you were just kind of letting me get past you or whatever, that wouldn't mean as much if I beat you, right? I'd want to really have your best game. And maybe I played the best set of my life and I beat you, that would make me feel good. And so I think, people want to see you play your best.
Right. So, I mean, it's, you do have, your college kids that come in and buy a couple of pitchers of beer and, spend money here. And it's nice to have both sections. And, the bad players, the recreational players, they know good equipment when they see it too.
Yeah.
So I make sure I just got all LED lighting in the back in the main room. I have 33 tables with LED lighting here now. And the same lights that Freezer uses.
Yeah.
His place, light systems. So, it's the recreational players like nice things too.
Yeah. I bought one of those lights for my house. I really like it. Yeah.
They work great.
So who are the top players? One of the things when I talk to folks, I want to know like maybe who are some of the other players in the area that are kind of coming up that maybe we haven't heard about, or maybe we have, and we just don't realize they might play out of your room. So who are some of the other top players around there?
We got Mark Hang, Tony Chohan's cousin.
Yeah.
Mark, the local, he comes in all the time. I'm trying to think here. We got like guys like Skip Nakakis and Francis Rita, good, solid shortstop level players. And then you got like some of the big action players, like the roofer. We call him the roofer, Steve Hausch.
Love the nickname.
Yeah, he owns a roofing company.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon to see him play 1,000 a game, 2,000 a game. So, I mean,
wow.
I mean, he's very strong action.
One pocket?
One pocket, yeah. Loves the one pocket. I saw him play Billy Thorpe getting 10-6 and he got tortured. But, he steps up and will bet high and show a lot of gamble. There's a lot of like mid-level players.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot of super, super strong players, but a lot of medium, 680 to 700 Fargo-ish players. We have a bunch of them.
Yeah. So speaking of that kind of range, or maybe even a little lower than that, but do you have some advice that you could share with maybe younger up and coming players like that could really help their game?
Yeah. Get proper instruction. I mean, I can't emphasize bad habits suck, and breaking them is the worst thing ever. So I feel like you're going to put a lot of limitations on yourself if you don't get proper technique from the beginning. So have guys like Mitch Ellerman help you out, or guys like Josh Roberts, or whoever your local pro is. Pick their brain, pay for your lessons. The information you're going to learn is going to shave off years off your learning curve. It's worth every dollar.
Yeah. Thanks for that. What do you do outside of pool? Like, do you have any special skills or hobbies that folks might not know about?
I played basketball for a while. I kind of stopped that when I was like 21, 22. But
Injury related, or you just?
I just pool related. I'd rather spend my time playing pool than playing ball.
Yeah.
I was able to dunk a tennis ball at one point. So
how tall are you?
5'9".
So I'm 5'9", and I played ball. I grew up in Baltimore, and I could dunk a tennis ball. That's what I tell everybody. I could get up. I could dunk a tennis ball. Never a basketball, but a tennis ball. So yeah. So we have that in common. That's pretty cool.
But I was not the most gifted athlete, so it was all hard work. I was in the gym every morning and every evening. I mean, I was just doing 2-a-days all the time. But besides that, I mean, I'm just a family man nowadays. So, my life's changed a lot since having kids. So for the good, though.
Yeah. So who would you say is your biggest rival? Uh, and maybe share a story or two about playing them.
Bustamante easily.
Really?
I I don't know what it is about that guy. He's got my number like you would not believe. And I get it. He's a much better player than me. I'm not saying that I'm a better player than him. I want the fans and the viewers, listeners, or whatever to understand I am not saying I'm his level. But I've played some amazing pool against him, and I cannot win no matter what. I will play amazing, and he'll play super amazing. And I'll play way over my head, and he'll just play even higher. And it's kind of gross, to be honest with you. I broke and ran 7 racks on him at the U.S. Open when he was just inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to welcome this guy to the Hall of Fame. That's what I was thinking to myself. I put a 7-pack on him. I'm up 9-0. And he puts an 8 on me right back, which is, I get shook. I just dog my brains out after that. He beats me 11-8.
Jeez.
I mean, it's just sick. I'm like, who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that? I mean, it's just gross how good he played. I did beat him once. The last time we played, I did beat him, but I felt like I won the World Series when I beat him.
Yeah, he's a great player.
Oh, he's amazing. He's one of my favorite players.
Yeah, I'd love to have him on one time. Maybe I'll try to work that out, because a lot of people really have so many good things to say about competing with him. I just had Alex Pagulayan on, and he was, he said, if I go on the road, that's the one guy I'll go on the road with, because they get along great. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to be around.
Yeah. So for players that have really made the choice to be competitive, do you have anything when it comes to like your mental approach to the game that you could maybe share that could be helpful to them as they're kind of progressing?
Money management. To me, that's the single most important thing you can do for your mental health. There's nothing more devastating than going broke. And it can affect you long term. It can affect you years. I know this because it happened to me. It took me about 2 years to recover a big loss. I just could not break that weight off my shoulder. I couldn't shake it off. Everything went against me. I tried too hard to win. It really just affected me for years. Yeah, I mean, besides that, I mean, another piece of advice I can give you is just play within your means again, money management, and probably put in the work. I mean, there's no shortcuts. There's a reason why Shane, Dennis are always winning. They're in there at 7 a.m. the second the doors open, and they're there till the doors close. If you're not going to put in the work, find a job. Very simple. You're wasting your time, and you're wasting your future. I've never been the most talented player in the world. I had some natural talent, but the reason why I played at the level I did is because I worked hard. I put in the work. It wasn't unusual for me to put in 12, 14 hours a day. I did it for years. No weekends, no life, no girlfriend, just boom, 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 boom. And I reaped the rewards. So besides that, to other pro players, try to enjoy your life, because I feel like, honestly, like before COVID hit, I was playing better pool than I was when I was playing full time, because I was enjoying my life. I had a good balance, good work-life balance. And, it was just enough pool where, I was playing 2 hours a day. It was just enough to where I felt good. But at the same time, I wasn't killing myself. I wasn't stressed. So there's a lot of advice I can give someone, but
No, I think that's great. I think you gave some great advice there. And when I was kind of coming up and cutting my teeth, I was playing in the DC area, And there were like 4 weekly tournaments a week, and every one of them had Brandon Schuff, Keith McCready, Mike Davis, Ryan McCreesh, a lot of good players in it. And I remember, I'd have some success against them from time to time, but it seemed like, after a while, I'd kind of get down on myself, right? And I'd go to the tournament. It's like, what's going to go wrong today? And so I kind of made this conscious decision to put my mind in the right place and say, you know what? My first bad roll, I'm just going to eat it, and I'm going to be like, okay, be happy and just try to have a positive disposition. It was amazing. It's like, I don't know why I didn't do that more often, because every time I did, I'd have a good tournament. I'd upset a couple people and I'd feel great about it, And so I think, what you said about the mental approach, but the money management part, that's really interesting. I've never had somebody tell me that on this on one of these episodes. And, we just, I don't know if you caught the match from this past weekend. This is
Mhm.
obviously, we're not going to air this, in the same time frame, but the Tyler Steyer and Atencio match that occurred. And I want to say that Tyler was betting his own 20K.
Not all of it, but he was betting a big piece.
A big piece. Wow. And
Yeah.
so that kind of made, as soon as I heard about, him, well, I thought he's betting it all, but still betting a big piece of it. I immediately thought about, wow, he must have his head together in terms of how he's managing his money, which is really cool,
Yeah, it's great.
So, yeah. So talking about the hard work part, Oscar, can you take us through like what practice sessions, maybe back when you were playing a lot, what your practice sessions look like? Were you throwing balls out on the table? Were you breaking and playing the ghosts? Were you doing drills? What did that entail?
I mean, it depended. When I was probably playing my best, I was doing that 7-ball run stuff. So I was constantly learning how to run out, run out, run, always having tough shots. So it forced me to run out. And I felt like I was running out, not depending on safe anymore. So I was shooting the more aggressive shot, and I felt like my wins went up because of that. Drills, I played much better when I got introduced to Johan, and he worked with me on the drills and the Mosconi Cup training and all that stuff. I felt like I became a better player. I never did drills in the past. I always just hit balls. But drills have their purpose. They have their use because you exercise certain parts of your game that are most commonly used. So, um, yeah, I mean, drills. I'll play a little bit of straight pull just to change it up, work on my break. It just really all depends what I had coming up. If I'm into one pocket action, I'll play some bank pull for a while just to figure stuff out, the speed, lagging banks or whatever. Um, Sometimes I'll kick for 45 minutes straight.
I was going to ask about that because you said I'm going to practice the shots that commonly come up. And my next question was about the shots that don't come up that much, right? Like the break shot or jumping or kicking or using a bridge, the things that, like I always go to the pool room, and before on my way there, I say, I'm going to break the balls for 45 minutes, and I do it for about 10 minutes. And then I'm like, okay, let me hit balls in the hole, So, like, do you practice those things pretty frequently?
I mean, when I was playing, yeah. Um, Especially when I lived at my parents' house when I had a table at home. It was different. Uh, my dad recovered at the table, and I just practiced jump shots for 8 hours a day for a week straight.
Wow.
I, for my poor dad, he looked at the pool table and there was white spots all over the table. And he never cared. And then whenever the table would get worn down, he's like, hey, I'm going to have to recover the felt soon. So if you're going to practice your jump shots or your masses, now's the time.
Yeah.
So then I'd be working on my masses for like 6 hours a day. And I learned a lot of cool little nifty shots because no one ever practices them because it's frowned upon in the pool hall.
Yeah.
Because they don't pay for the equipment. But now that I have my own place and my dad still fixes my tables, I can. I'm like, hey, Dad, kind of mess up the clock a little bit. Let's fix this table.
Yeah. That's funny. So you mentioned the Mosconi Cup, and I wanted to ask you about really the pressure of competing in the Mosconi Cup, being a part of the team and kind of knowing the whole team's watching, the whole country's watching, the fans are crazy. Tell us about that.
Um, the first year, '09, was really difficult for me because I got a lot of pressure. I was very nervous. Um, in 17, I wasn't nervous at all. I actually felt really comfortable. It felt like any other tournament, but I played worse, which didn't make sense. But anyways, um, it's kind of surreal, your heart starts pounding. It kind of feels like a basketball game, you know, like we have the cheerleaders and the crowd stomping on their feet, and boom, you hear the energy of the crowd, and you feel it in your chest. It's the same thing. So I kind of make it equivalent to like you're in overtime, and you're down by 2 points, and you're shooting 2 free throws to tie the game to send it to the second overtime. You have to make those 2 free throws. That's the pressure you have on Mosconi Cup on every single shot, even if it's hanging in the hole.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that you can get an ulcer real quick.
Yeah. So would you want to do it again?
Yeah. I'm still planning on playing again. I'm 35, Joey. I'm not old. I'm not past my prime. I have great vision. I had LASIK done in 2019. 2009. I still see great. My nerves are good. Financially, I'm going to have more freedom with the business. And I can use it as a promotional thing to stay, promote the business. Plus, maybe take my wife and my daughters around to see different parts of the world. I figure that's my dream, to kind of play a couple of Euro tours and, maybe play the tournament in Italy and take my daughters to Disneyland Paris. That's kind of my dream.
Let me ask you about this year's Mosconi Cup team. So it was just announced not too long ago. The last and final spot went to Chris Robinson, and a lot of people, they were thinking that Tyler Steyer would get it because the team would be the same really from the team that won it the year before. And I think you might know Chris a little bit. Yeah, tell us a little bit about Chris and what you think about that pick.
He's a great player. He's learning a lot. He's hungry. He does have a lot to learn. He's still green. He needs more experience. Probably the weakest part of his game is his decision making. Sometimes he doesn't know when to play safe and when to go for the shot, in my opinion. But he's learning quickly. I think the margin for improvement on Chris is very big. So there's so much room for him to grow. And, we forget that he's so young. He's just a kid. You really don't know what the hell you're doing when you're 22, 23. You have so much more to learn. You think you know a lot, but you don't know anything. Yeah. And you realize that in your 30s. And then when you're 35, it's like, wow, I really didn't know anything about life. Or that was really stupid, or whatever. And I'm sure I'm going to feel about that way about myself when I'm in my 40s and 50s.
I'm 48, so you will, trust me.
So there's so much to learn. I think it's safe to say the general consensus is that Tyler is a better player than Chris. I think it's pretty fair to say that, currently speaking. But it's nice to see Chris get an opportunity to grow, because this experience, his game's going to improve probably a ball and a half or 2 balls.
Yeah. And
Tyler, the experience really wasn't going to help him. It might help him a little bit, but the experience growth for Chris is going to be much greater because he hasn't been there before. And you do grow as a player. When you do play the Mosconi Cup, you do learn because you got the best players in America telling you, hey, this is what you need to do. And, it's nice to have them behind you, and you start learning, you start figuring things out.
Well, that's exactly what happened with Tyler, right?
Yeah.
So the first year when Tyler got selected, everybody was like, what, who, what? And if you look at his progression since he was first selected to the Mosconi Cup team, he's a completely different player.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. These guys are young, and let's say, for instance, Chris performs poorly. Let's just say he performs poorly and he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. But for next year, Chris and Tyler are probably going to be on the team together. They're both going to be much better players. They're both going to grow together. I I think they picked Chris for it to be a long-term thing, to give him the experience that he needs, because he's not going away anywhere. He's going to be out there, and he's just going to get better and better.
Yeah. So you're known as a strong, big money player. Is there a different approach you have when you match up than when you play in tournaments?
Yeah. I mean, tournaments, you just play. You play whoever. I mean, you have no choice. You put in the money and pay your expenses, and you get there. Gambling, it's, how can I say this lightly? You find weakness, and you find the percentages, and you bet high when you have the odds in your favor, and you bet low when you don't. I mean, it's just you got to pick your spots, and when you're gambling, if you're going to risk $10,000, you're going to have to realize that you have the potential to win it back, or win some and more. There's a lot of calculations that go into gambling. Tournaments, there's no calculations. You just go out there and play.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's much different approach.
So in the first episode I ever did with Mike Davis, at the end of it, I asked him how it went, and he said, there's a question you didn't ask me, but you should ask everybody else. So he got off the hook here. But I'm going to ask you, what's your highest high and your lowest low in your pool career?
Lowest low, I played Keith Bennett. I lost $50,000. That's the lowest low. I was in New York City. We played race at 21 for 10,000. I lost hill. So I lost 20,000. And then we play the next day for 15,000 a set. I lost 25-23 in hill. And I wanted to walk in front of an MTA bus. I mean, that was low. So yeah, I lost 50,000. That's the experience that I told you that took me years to recover from.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my money. A lot of it wasn't mine. I probably lost like 2,000 out of it, 3,000. I didn't lose much. It was just like, it was a real big kick in the stomach. Biggest high, playing John Moore in 2009. I bet $17,600. I still remember like it was yesterday.
Wow. What a number.
What a number. $17,600 of our own money, me and my dad. And I won a race to 100. And that really helped me out. At the time, I probably shouldn't say this, but I borrowed money there to really bet it. So it was not a smart thing to do. I don't ever encourage anyone to do it. But I remember shaking like a leaf the first 10 games. I was down like 8-0 out the gate. And I'm shaking. I'm literally shaking like a leaf. I kind of settled in, and then 12-12 or 13-13, and I'm like, all right, I got this guy. And then I ended up winning, but whatever.
Yeah.
That was probably, for me at the time, John was a great player, and he still is, obviously, but to me, that was a big high. Second in Beijing was a close second. That was a big tournament for me because I beat everybody at the time. Yang Chin-Chun I beat. I lost to Chang Junlin in the finals. I remember beating Lee Van Cortez, Thorsten Holman, Chang Yulung, Pei Wei Chang, and I beat another Taiwanese champion, some low guy. I forgot his first name, but monster player. I beat like nothing but world beaters.
Yeah. Was it just you were on that weekend, or
I was gambling like 14 hours a day, like the whole week before Beijing, because it was right after the China Open. So I was just gambling, and I just hit a gear. I was just a dead stroke. And I went in there and dead punch. And I beat a lot of people who I shouldn't beat because I played over my head.
Yeah. So do you have any ideas for growing the sport in the United States, maybe bringing professional pool really back, right? I grew up watching, players on ESPN, and we don't get that anymore, and maybe we never will. But do you have any ideas for bringing professional pool back to the United States?
It's a good question. I do have ideas. I think we need to get in with the casinos. And I know a lot of people frown upon casinos and they say, oh, we should be, they steal all the money, all the pool players lose their money. Well, that's their problem. That's personal responsibility. If you can't go into a casino and control yourself to not blow all your money, that's your problem. I don't think the sport should suffer for people's personal issues. I hate to say that. I think casinos is where it's at. Because if the casinos start having more and more events, they can start booking the events. And if they book the events, then you open up a whole new world to gaming. And gaming is where it's at. All these sports, NFL, and MLB, all these major sports, the reason why it's so successful is because they obviously have TV and they have people bet on it all the time. People don't bet a quarter, bet on Super Bowls. They don't know anything about gambling. But they'll bet 500 on the Super Bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
They turn in and watch. They tune in and watch. And if you get into the gambling, there's going to be more viewings. There's going to be a reason for people to watch it on TV because they're betting on it.
Yeah. So I had Sean Wilkie on, and he brought up Turning Stone and said that, he basically said the same thing that you did about getting the casinos involved, and like what Mike Zuglin's done with Turning Stone. They have 2 events a year. They're big events. And, why can't that be replicated across the country?
Should be $25,000 for a casino that does that in about 20 minutes in the food sales. I mean, why? It's pennies for them, and they get a lot of value because they get, sadly, I hate to say it this way, but a lot of gambling people in there. But it's a personal responsibility issue. It's not, some people don't want to play tournaments in casinos because they can't control themselves. Again, personal problem.
Yeah. So I live in Arizona, and we had a tournament at a casino down here near Tucson. Yeah. And, after we got our checks from the tournament, we go to cash them, and the casino said, yeah, we're not going to cash those checks. And I'm like, don't you realize who we are? We're pool players,
Oh yeah. If I were them, I would have cashed it a long time ago.
Exactly. I'm like,
would you like those chips or cash? Chips. Here you go, sir.
Exactly. So you and your wife founded the Mezz West State Tour back in 2014. Do you have plans to continue that when the country opens back up?
We are. On a smaller scale. I have 2 events left on the season, which never seem to end because of children and business and whatnot. I tried selling the tour, and then they got their own business, the people who ended up taking over. And so now I'm back to stage 1 again, and I'm never going to let it die. I think it's too important for my personal business as a pool room owner to keep the sport going.
Yeah. So I'll mention Mike Davis again. When he was on and I did his interview, I asked him about sponsorships and like what was his advice to people who are trying to get sponsorships. And I think I sent you the quote that he said in the video about you got to be like Oscar, because he's just the kind of guy that companies know. He's going to be a stand-up guy. He's always going to try his best. He's always going to do everything, the right way. So can you tell us, one, I want to know, anything about any sponsors that you have and kind of how you view that and your responsibility to them.
Yeah, I'm sponsored by Predator Q's. And in terms of sponsorship, sorry about that. We get phone calls all the time here. See if we're open. My biggest piece of advice is use the product that you love. Forget about the sponsorship. Ignore sponsors. This is like the biggest misconception was I want to be a sponsored player. No, you don't. Because if you're using a product that's costing you matches, it's not worth the sponsorship that you're getting. So why am I worried about getting a free cue stick when I'm playing a $10,000 set and the shaft's going to deflect on me. What do I care about? What do I care about a free cue that's going to deflect on me? If Predator calls me today and says, you know what, Oscar, we don't like the way you represent our products. Have a wonderful day. I'm still going to use a break cue, and I'm still going to use a Revo shaft. Why? Because in my opinion, they're the best for how I play. And I made that, very clear to my sponsors. Like, look, I'm going to use the best equipment. Whether I'm not a big fan of your jump cues or I'm not a big fan of your break cues, I'm going to use this break cue because to me, playing great pool is more important than what you can offer me. So, yeah, I mean, that's my advice. Ignore it. Just be yourself, play with what you can, and call it a day.
So, Oscar, in speaking with a mutual friend of ours, Nick DeLeon out here in Arizona, he was telling me about some stories that you shared with him about playing in the Far East and what that meant for your game. And so, I know you've talked about it a little bit so far, but I want to dive a little deeper into that. And, can you share with us kind of what that meant to your development playing overseas?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's safe to say the best players in the world are in Southeast Asia, the Philippines, Taiwan, China, Vietnam, very strong country. I guess their livelihood depends on pool. So they're 100% immersed into the sport. So when you're immersed in the sport, you have a lot more at stake. So when you go there, you surround yourself with greatness, really, is what it comes down to. And you start learning from everybody. You start watching. You start seeing how they do things differently than the American way. And you see that you have a lot to learn because they've dedicated their life to the sport. There's a lot to learn from that culture, how they approach the game. They're very, very structured, and the results show. And it's nice. I have a lot of good experiences out there, in Indonesia especially, China, spent a lot of time out there, Singapore. So, you go to these countries, even though they're so close to each other, it's a whole different school of playing. You got the Taiwanese with the Southwest cues. Everyone plays with the Southwest natural shaft, high deflection. And then you go to the Philippines and everyone uses Predator or Mezz. And then you go to Japan, everyone's Mezz or Adams. So it's like whole different schools of pool. And you start seeing the way they do things, and it's kind of cool. I mean, they're great. So many great players there. You almost have to be an idiot not to learn.
Yeah. So leading up to this interview, I normally keep it a secret who I'm going to interview, but I think you might even have seen one of my posts online where I'd ask people, hey, if I were going to interview, and I think I said Oscar Dominguez or something, what question, hypothetically, would you want me to ask? And, there were a few good ones, but one that I thought was really good, especially me being a dad and having 3 kids, is you're a family guy and, you have a couple daughters, would you recommend or, like, how would you introduce or would you introduce pool to your daughters as they get older?
Good question. John Schmidt said it best. Any parent that tries to teach their kid how to play pool, they should be charged with child abuse. Oh, Jesus, that John, he comes out with some stuff. But you know what? I'm going to introduce them to sport that I love. I mean, because you know what? When I'm long gone, they'll probably inherit this business. I want them to understand the sport. I want them to understand the business. If they want to play, I'll fully support them. If they don't want to play, I'll fully support them in that way too. I would encourage them to finish their education, something that I didn't do, which I regret. I did some college, but I would encourage them to finish their education. Learn business. Be smart. If I'm able to give them, say, they can inherit the business or they can inherit whatever I have, I want them to manage themselves right. But pool, pool's a beautiful sport, and I owe my life to it. But it's not a lifestyle which I would encourage anyone to partake in.
Yeah.
It is a tough life.
Well, I think kind of the key is, like your dad introduced you to the game but he also introduced the values that were necessary to manage the game and life, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of pool players don't have that. I was fortunate enough to have that. And as part of that, maybe that's why I never became a professional, right? Because my dad said, keep it as a hobby,
Yeah.
and make sure you do X, Y, and Z. And so there's probably room for both, right? Because I think about that with my kids and they like pool, and so I'd like them to enjoy it as a hobby, and maybe get a little competitive with it, but I don't want them going on. Like I had Alex on here and Alex was like, yeah, I went on my first road trip when I was 13. They filed a missing persons report. I don't want that, So, yeah. So winding down, Oscar, I can't thank you enough. This has been great. And, we were trying to do this for a little while and, you had a kid. So, obviously that took precedent, but I really appreciate you uh, spending the time with me. And I just want to kind of give you a chance, any closing thoughts, anything that you want to share with the pool community, about Oscar Dominguez.
I mean, I'm just a normal guy. I mean, really just down to earth. I bought a successful business. It was always a dream of mine to own my own pool room, and dreams do come true. I've been very blessed in my life. I owe it to so many people, and don't screw people over. I mean, if that's like one thing I can leave somebody, like, don't screw people over. Like, the nice guys don't finish last. People appreciate it. There's a reason why I have a whole bunch of stake horses willing to put me in $10,000 sets, because they know if they bet on me, they're going to get value for the money. They're going to get someone who's going to fight hard and not dump them. Treat people like you want to be treated, and live your life. Enjoy it.